Right. So the dust has barely settled on what can only be described as one of the most chaotic, disappointing, and downright baffling transfer deadline days Celtic has endured in years. And believe me, that bar was already on the floor. We're talking about a summer that started with big expectations. A season where the club was supposed to push forward, build on European momentum, and reinforce the squad with genuine quality to take the team to the next level. Instead, it ended in complete disarray. No strategy, no statement of intent, and now, a Celtic fanbase left feeling frustrated, let down, and questioning where exactly this club is heading. You almost have to laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's either that or screaming into the void. What we've just witnessed on deadline day was a masterclass in how not to run a football club at the highest level. There was no clarity, no confidence in decision-making, and above all, no sign of ambition from those in charge. Brendan Rodgers might still be at the helm, but he's looking increasingly like a man trying to steer a ship that's slowly taking on water and being told to smile while doing it. Let's start with what was arguably the biggest slap in the face for supporters, the collapse of any meaningful striker signing. Celtic went into this summer knowing, beyond any doubt, that reinforcements were needed up front. Adam Ida's loan spell was a mixed bag, but most agreed he offered something. He provided physicality, movement, and a different option up top. Rodgers had even gone on record, publicly, just days before the deadline, saying Ida wouldn't leave unless a replacement was lined up. So what happened? You guessed it, he left. Off to Swansea, in a permanent deal. Celtic brought no one in to replace him. No backup plan. No plan B. Just an empty number 9 shirt and a manager left to awkwardly backpedal in the next press conference. Then there was the situation with Kasper Dolberg, a name that had real weight. An experienced striker, international pedigree, a player who could have changed the dynamic in the final third. The kind of signing Celtic fans dream about. But instead of snapping him up, the club got caught watching Ajax swoop in and seal the deal for €10 million. Celtic were left scrambling, linking themselves to a series of uninspiring names. Seko Mara, David Datro Fofana, Kelechi Iheanacho, the last one being a classic example of Celtic reaching into the Rodgers archive when things get desperate. It's the same pattern, over and over. When there's no plan, we default to who Brendan knows. And guess what? Most of them still don't want to come. Iheanacho is now a free agent after his deal at Sevilla was terminated, and the noises coming out of Parkhead suggest the club might still be talking to him. But here's the thing. He had the chance to join in January and chose Middlesbrough instead. Let that sink in. Now there's talk of interest from clubs in Turkey and even Mexico, and you'd be forgiven for thinking, why would he choose us now, especially after witnessing the absolute circus that was Celtic's deadline day? Every agent in Europe knows the club is desperate. And when clubs operate from a position of desperation, you either massively overpay, which Celtic clearly won't do, or you get left with the scraps. The only signing actually completed on deadline day was Sebastian Tanecht, a 23-year-old winger from Hammarby in Sweden. He arrives for a fee of just over £5 million, and honestly, fair play to him. It's a shame that his big move to Celtic has been completely overshadowed by the chaos around him. Because this lad didn't do anything wrong. He's just trying to take the next step in his career. But instead of excitement or anticipation, his announcement was met with groans and exhaustion from a support that's reached its boiling point. Hopefully, he turns out to be a gem. Rodgers believes he can operate on both wings, though he's mostly been used on the left. We'll give him time, and he should get the chance to settle. But if the club thinks his arrival is enough to plug all the glaring holes up front, they're sorely mistaken. Elsewhere, Young almost left. The winger was reportedly down in Birmingham, waiting for the green light to join the championship side, only for the deal to collapse late on. Some say Celtic pulled the plug, others point to paperwork issues. But the bottom line is that he's now back in Glasgow, and who knows what his headspace is like after being on the verge of an exit. Good luck to the coaching staff trying to reintegrate him. Another loan move that did go through was Stephen Welsh heading to Motherwell for the season. He'll get some minutes there, and still has time left on his Celtic contract. So in theory, that's a logical move. But again, no replacement brought in. Just another body out the door. And when you look at the overall depth of the squad, that's when the full horror show becomes clear. Forget ambition. This squad, as it stands, is weaker than it was at the start of the window, and that's not even up for debate. The forward line is a shambles. The club have gambled hard on players like Tenecht and Balikwisha hitting the ground running. And what if they don't? What if they need time to settle? What if they struggle for consistency? Where's the backup plan? And then there's the added headache of the African Cup of Nations. Both Tenecht and Balikwisha are highly likely to be called up by their national teams this winter. That means they'll miss up to a month of the season, including key fixtures. And if the club does somehow land Iheanacho, he could also be unavailable, depending on Nigeria's selections. So in the middle of the season, during a title race and crucial European fixtures, we could be left with no recognized forwards. No plan, no creativity, just vibes and hope. Defensively, there are similar question marks. Kieran Tierney's return sparked some excitement, but there's no option to buy, and as much as we all love KT, injuries have dogged his career. Sirachi might be a solid addition at left back, but again, he's alone. The center back situation? It's murky. Simpson Puzzy is a name that's come out of nowhere, and no one really knows if he's ready for regular minutes. The midfield, once seen as a strength, now looks increasingly lightweight and imbalanced. The lack of a proper enforcer or a dynamic playmaker is glaring, and it's hard to shake the feeling that this team isn't built to handle a long, grueling campaign across multiple competitions. And that brings us to the manager, Brendan Rodgers, a man who returned to Celtic amidst much fanfare, promising a bold new era and backed, at least initially, by the board. But after this window, you'd be forgiven for wondering if he feels just as stitched up as the fans. Rumors are already flying about whether he'll walk, and while nothing official has been said, there's clearly tension behind the scenes. He's now been left to make do with a squad that's full of holes, and with expectations that remain sky-high. You can see it in his body language during pressers. This isn't the Brendan Rodgers we remember from his first spell, sharp, energized, clear in vision. This is a man stuck in limbo, trying to sell a project that doesn't really exist. What's even more damning is that this all comes on the back of progress. Real, tangible progress. Last season, Celtic had one of their best European runs in recent memory. They took it to big sides, showed they could compete, and instead of building on that momentum, instead of pushing forward from a position of strength, the club has stagnated. Worse, it's regressed. And the fans, who pour their money, time, and passion into supporting this team, are left asking the same question they've asked for years. When will Celtic start acting like the club they could be? The most frustrating thing isn't just the lack of signings, it's the lack of vision. There's no long-term planning, no roadmap. Every window feels like a panic scramble, a series of short-term punts and false dawns. And as supporters, we're just expected to accept it. To keep singing, keep paying, keep believing, while the people running the club take our loyalty for granted. It's exhausting. You see it online. You hear it in pubs. You feel it on the terraces. There's a growing disconnect between the board and the fans, a deep-rooted frustration that goes beyond a bad window or a couple of dropped points. It's a sense that the club's potential is being wasted, that we're watching the same cycle repeat itself season after season. Poor recruitment, vague messaging from leadership, and a blind hope that things will just click come match day. Even now, with Celtic still top of the league, with Rangers floundering and questions swirling around other rivals, even now, the mood around the club is bleak. That tells you everything. This isn't about league position. It's about how Celtic are conducting themselves as an institution, how they represent their fans, how they aspire to grow, compete, and achieve something meaningful, not just in Scotland, but in Europe, where it really counts. The hope, and that's all it is right now, is that players like Tenecht and Balikwisha turn out to be hidden gems, that Rodgers can somehow steady the ship, get everyone pulling in the same direction, and squeeze performances out of a squad that looks thinner than it has in years. But hope alone doesn't win you titles, and it certainly doesn't get you past quality sides in the Europa League. For that, you need structure, you need ambition, and you need leadership. Right now, Celtic are lacking in all three. What's maybe the most gutting thing in all of this is just how avoidable it was. Celtic weren't blindsided by the need for reinforcements. They weren't caught out by surprise injuries or some kind of financial emergency. They knew full well what the squad required, not just to defend the domestic title, but to progress in Europe, to finally make a mark in competitions that have long seen Celtic stumble. And yet, Window after window, we see the same risk-averse approach. A board too content to sit on cash reserves, too hesitant to push the boat out, and seemingly too disconnected from the supporters who live and breathe this club. You hear phrases like sustainable spending and measured recruitment thrown around to justify the lack of urgency. But what's sustainable about standing still while rivals strengthen? What's measured about waiting until deadline day to try and rush through deals that never materialize? At some point, it's not about prudence, it's about passivity. And this board, for all the credit they get when the league trophies pile up, have to answer for the fact that Celtic, one of the biggest clubs in Britain, still operates like a mid-table outfit when it comes to building a team fit for Europe. There's a culture at the top of the club that seems obsessed with risk avoidance. Every window feels like they're hoping to get by with minimal disruption. The attitude seems to be, if we're ahead of Rangers and can field a decent team for most of the season, that's job done. But Celtic fans want more than that. They expect more than that. We're not turning up week after week, singing in the rain and filling the stands just for another title parade in May. We want nights to remember. We want the roar of paradise when a top European side comes to town and gets put under real pressure. We want the kind of team that doesn't just show up in Europe, but belongs there. And instead, we get deadline day disasters and transfer windows that end with more questions than answers. Take one look at the striking department right now. 3 names: Yamada, Kinney, Osmond. That's it. That's what Celtic are relying on going into the thick of the season. And that would be laughable if it wasn't so infuriating. None of those names strike fear into opposition defenders. None of them are proven at this level. And yet here we are, acting like it's fine, as if fans won't notice how utterly threadbare this squad is in one of the most crucial areas of the pitch. This isn't just about depth. It's about having no clear number 1 option up front. No one who looks ready to lead the line in Europe or in crunch matches domestically. It's a complete dereliction of duty from those tasked with recruitment. And it's not just the strikers. Look across the pitch and you'll see a team patched together with loans, fringe players and signings that feel more like hopeful punts than calculated moves. The right wing has only James Forrest and Young, one who's past his best and the other who almost left the club hours ago. The left side has numbers but no real clarity, with Maeda running his legs off as usual but lacking in product, Balikwisha an unknown quantity, and Hoda still unavailable for an uncertain period. The midfield, which once looked stacked with options, now feels light and vulnerable. McGregor can't do it all, and there's no one in there to grab a game by the scruff of the neck when things get tough. Then we look at the center backs, Carter Vickers aside. Who do you trust to step in and deliver consistently? Scales is honest but limited. The rest are either too young, too inexperienced, or simply not good enough. The fullback situation is equally patchy, with Johnston and Ralston again expected to carry the load on the right, while Tierney, as much as we all love him, is on a short-term loan and one bad knock away from the treatment table. Enamura, who was once talked up as a player with real potential, seems to have been completely forgotten in the chaos of the last few weeks. No loan move. No real pathway into the first team. It's as if the club doesn't quite know what to do with him, and that's becoming a familiar story. All of this leaves Brendan Rodgers in an impossible position. He's being asked to compete on all fronts with a squad that's not only imbalanced, but painfully shallow. You can almost feel the frustration simmering beneath the surface when he speaks. He talks about unity, about making do with what we've got, about getting the best out of the current group. But these are the words of a man trying to hold things together with duct tape. The smile feels forced, the optimism strained. And you can't blame him. He returned to Celtic with promises that this time would be different, that he'd be backed properly, that he'd have a squad to match his ambition. And here he is, trying to piece together an 11 that doesn't even have a proper striker. The question now is, how long can this go on before it all falls apart? Celtic may well still have enough to win the league. After all, Rangers look far from convincing, and no other club has the resources or consistency to mount a serious title challenge over 38 games. But that shouldn't be the only benchmark. Celtic should be judged on more than just being the best team in Scotland. The goal should be progress, real, tangible progress, and that starts with building a team that fans can believe in. A team with depth, quality, and identity. Right now, it feels like we're miles away from that. What makes it worse is the sense of apathy creeping in. That's the real danger. Anger means people still care. But apathy? That's when supporters stop turning up, stop engaging, stop believing that anything's going to change. And you could feel that shift on deadline day. The reaction to the Tanecht signing wasn't one of joy or excitement. It was a collective shrug. Not because the lad's a bad player. He could be brilliant. But because fans are worn out from being let down. It's not even disappointment anymore. It's numbness. A feeling that nothing really changes, no matter how loud we shout or how much we demand better. You only have to look at how much money this club has brought in over the last few years, from player sales, from Champions League appearances, from merchandise, ticket sales, and commercial deals. The finances are there. The resources are there. Celtic are not a small club. And yet, when it comes to ambition, when it comes to pushing for that next level, we act like we're scraping coins from the couch cushions. It's maddening. And if that doesn't change, it's only a matter of time before the cracks become impossible to paper over. People will point to the league table. They'll say we're still ahead, still in the mix, still capable of doing something this season. And all of that is true. But it's beside the point. The concern isn't just where we are, it's where we're heading. And right now, the trajectory doesn't look encouraging. The squad is fragile. The dressing room doesn't look united. The manager seems increasingly isolated. And the board? Silent, as always. Nowhere to be seen. No accountability. No explanation. Just silence while the fans are left to pick up the pieces of another disastrous window. And as for Europe, that's the part that hurts the most. Celtic should be building a team capable of going toe-to-toe with quality European sides. Not just qualifying for the group stage, but competing, really competing. And after last season, there was real belief that we could start to do just that. There was optimism. There was momentum. Now, it feels like we're starting from scratch again. And with the Europa League just around the corner, the idea of going into those matches with our current squad is honestly frightening. We're hoping that players who haven't played a minute in Europe suddenly rise to the occasion, that untested wingers can carry the team, that Brendan Rodgers can find a tactical masterstroke that papers over all the cracks. But that's not a plan. That's blind hope. And it's simply not good enough for a club like Celtic. The bottom line is this: the supporters deserve better. They've always deserved better. And this latest transfer window is just another reminder of how far short the club continues to fall. We can talk all we want about rebuilding in January, about keeping the faith, about turning the season around. But until there's real change, at the top, in the recruitment strategy, in the way this club operates, we're going to keep finding ourselves back here, staring at a threadbare squad, asking the same questions, and wondering why a club with so much potential continues to think so small. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. The noise swirling around Glasgow this week has been nothing short of explosive, as whispers have grown into full-blown chatter that Alex Lowry, long regarded as one of the brightest young Scottish prospects, is set to become the latest reinforcement for Celtic. It is a twist in the tale that few anticipated, given Lowry's background and the traditional rivalry that defines the footballing landscape in Scotland. The suggestion that he will don the green and white hoops has sent shockwaves not only through Celtic Park, but across the entire football community. Supporters of the boys have been left in a mixture of disbelief and excitement, with many struggling to comprehend how such a move could be pieced together. While no official confirmation has been issued, the rumor mill has turned relentlessly, and the idea of Lowry walking out to the roar of paradise feels both surreal and tantalizing. Celtic fans, desperate for a creative spark in the middle of the park, are already dreaming of what his elegance on the ball and youthful energy could bring to a side pushing for dominance both domestically and in Europe. Yet, beneath the thrill lies tension, anticipation, and unanswered questions. The very mention of Alex Lowry's name in connection with Celtic has triggered heated debates in pubs, forums, and social clubs up and down Scotland. Born and raised in an environment deeply colored by the blue side of Glasgow, Lowry's potential switch is not merely a sporting transfer. It carries layers of history, rivalry, and symbolism that go far beyond the pitch. Many argue that such a move could never materialize, believing it is simply the latest in a long line of fabricated rumors designed to stir emotions ahead of the season's decisive run-in. Others, however, claim that there is substance to the whispers, suggesting discreet meetings have already taken place between Lowry's representatives and Celtic's recruitment team. The idea that a player so closely tied to Rangers could make the jump to Celtic adds spice to an already fierce footballing rivalry. And whether it comes to fruition or not, the speculation itself is enough to intensify passions. Fans on social media have been relentless, with threads stretching into the thousands of comments as supporters dissect every possible clue, from cryptic Instagram posts to who was spotted at Lennoxdown Training Center. For Celtic, the possibility of securing a talent like Lowry represents far more than just another squad addition. It would be a statement of intent, a bold declaration that the club is willing to break boundaries to ensure continued success. Lowry's technical ability has never been in question. His creativity, vision, and flair on the ball have made him a standout in every youth setup he has featured in. What intrigues supporters is the thought of him linking up with the current midfield core, potentially unlocking defenses that have proven stubborn against Celtic's relentless attacks. Moreover, the age profile fits perfectly with the club's long-term strategy of blending experienced campaigners with hungry, gifted young talents who can be developed into stars of European football. The signing, if it happens, could also create ripples across the recruitment landscape, signaling to other young Scottish players that Celtic remains the premier destination for growth and opportunity. Of course, there is the lingering question of how Lowry would handle the pressure of such a controversial move, but for many within the Celtic faithful, the prospect of seeing his talent on their side of the divide is too enticing to ignore. Among Rangers supporters, the mere rumor of Lowry potentially heading to Parkhead has sparked outrage, disbelief, and even a sense of betrayal. To them, Lowry is not simply another academy graduate. He represents hope for the future and a symbol of continuity in a club striving to balance tradition with ambition. Losing him to their fiercest rivals would cut deeper than any ordinary transfer, striking at the very heart of identity and loyalty. Some fans insist that such a scenario could never be sanctioned by those in charge at Ibrox, while others fear financial pressures and the complexities of modern football may have opened the door to possibilities once deemed unthinkable. Conversations have grown increasingly animated, with pundits and former players wading into the debate, each offering their perspective on whether such a controversial move could ever realistically take place. For Celtic fans, the discomfort of their rivals is precisely what makes the rumors so delicious, fueling banter and bravado as they imagine the green half of Glasgow welcoming a player many thought would always belong to the blue. It is a situation that perfectly encapsulates the unique drama of Scottish football. As the speculation continues to intensify, one truth remains unshaken. The story of Alex Lowry and Celtic has already captured imaginations across the footballing landscape. Whether the deal becomes reality or fizzles out into nothing more than hearsay, the very existence of the rumor has amplified anticipation and added a fresh layer to the eternal narrative of the old firm rivalry. Journalists, fans, and analysts alike are hanging on every snippet of information, searching for signs that could either confirm or dismiss the possibility. Until something concrete is revealed, the uncertainty will linger, generating excitement, anxiety, and endless conversation. For Celtic, the dream of adding Lowry to their ranks is tantalizing, while for Rangers, the nightmare scenario of losing a prized prospect to their greatest foes is almost too painful to contemplate. In the end, this saga may prove to be nothing more than smoke without fire. But in the uniquely charged world of Scottish football, rumors can sometimes shape realities. For now, the city of Glasgow remains on edge, divided between hope and fear, waiting to see if this bombshell truly detonates. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.